Hang on. May start recording. There we are.
Okay, good morning everybody and welcome to a meeting of Cabinet on the 17th of December 2020. I'll go for apologies for absence first, please. Mr. Evans.
I have an apology for absence from Andrew Stevens.
Okay, are there any others?
None.
Okay, we'll move then to disclosures of personal or prejudicial interest. Are there any members wish to declare or officers wish to declare? Councillor Francis Davis.
Item 12 on bid as a board member, personal and prejudicial.
Thank you. Councillor Rayner.
Thank you. The item number 10, local authority governor appointments. I have dispensation from the Standards Committee to stay and speak but not vote.
Okay, thank you very much. And I also have an interest to declare, similar to Councillor Francis Davis, as a director of bid. Okay, are there any other declarations of interest? If not, we'll move then to the minutes of the previous meeting, pages 1 to 6. I've had nobody come to me to say anything's inaccurate. Can I ask if there is anything anybody wishes to change on those minutes?
Happy to move,
No.
Peter.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fallu. Moving. Can I have a seconder, please? Yep, thank you.
Happy to second. Yeah.
All those in favour? Thank you very much. Sorry, Mr. Evans, can I go to you for the vote?
Yeah, the vote should be on your screen now. If you can vote for, against, or abstain.
Yeah, Mr.
It's
Evans.
not appearing on my screen, Rob.
Yeah, it hasn't appeared on my screen either.
Okay, well, I put 7. Well, that's right. The other 7 have managed to vote. So how do you two wish to vote?
I'll raise my hand.
Okay, I'm going to close the vote now. Then on you, Mark, as well?
Yeah, just raise my hand.
Yeah, right. So that's fine. So that was a unanimous vote.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move to announcements of Leader of the Council. I only have one announcement for today, and that is to reflect on the situation across Wales and specifically in Swansea and Neath Talbot. Members will be aware that we are in an unprecedented position with regard to infection rates and the coronavirus. We've seen hospital admissions rise. We know that 40 people have passed away, sadly, in our hospitals over the past 7 days, with 14 passing away in the last 48 hours alone. And as the First Minister said yesterday, whilst there is some flexibility for families to meet up over the Christmas period, the absolute message is that such are the risks at the moment that people should not mix unless they absolutely have to. They could be carrying the virus into the homes of friends and loved ones, and likewise people could be bringing the virus into your home. Nobody knows whether a loved one or relative will have an underlying medical condition which is undiagnosed, and therefore they could end up being hospitalized and facing some serious consequences of the virus. The virus is not like the flu. It hasn't weakened. It hasn't gone away. So the advice, I'm sure from myself and from all of my colleagues, is to not mix this Christmas unless you absolutely have to enjoy Christmas in your own home, and to avoid, where you can, mixing with others outside of your household. So I'm sure everyone will support that message, and I know you've all been doing everything you possibly can in your various departments to help us respond and manage the crisis. We'll move now to public question time. Mr. Evans, do we have any questions from members of the public?
No questions have been submitted, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much. Move on to councillor question time. Do we have any questions from councillors?
None, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much. So, if we move next to the first quarter performance monitoring report. This is in the name of the Cabinet Member for Business Improvement and Performance, but as Mr. Evans alluded to, Councillor Stevens is unable to join us today, unfortunately. So I will take the report in his absence. In terms of the report itself, it again provides some positive news in terms of performance indicators across the council. And it's remarkable, actually, that given all of the huge disruption that council services have had to deal with over the last 9 months or so in responding so positively to the problems presented by the pandemic, that performance has not only been maintained but has improved in many areas. We have obviously had to vary our support for services and change services beyond recognition in some respects. Now, I will not go into too much detail on those as part of my introduction, because I know Cabinet members will want to talk about their own areas. But overall, this provides a reasonably positive report in any setting. But given the pandemic, it's an extremely positive report, identifying the fact that council services continue to improve or maintain their levels of service in the most difficult of times. So I'm going to pause there. I see a number of Cabinet members have indicated they may wish to speak, so I'll go to Councillor Lloyd first, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Listen, I'm just going to echo what you've said. I think it's an amazing achievement that we've got this sort of performance having come through the first quarter and second quarter of the year. First 3 months in the middle of a lockdown and pandemic, where services are really strained. A bit of lifting during the second quarter, which is reflected, as you say, Leader. But I'm sorry to say, in terms of adult social care, as I relayed to this joint scrutiny committee yesterday, we find ourselves in the midst of a huge battle against this pandemic and against this this pandemic and COVID-19 in our local area. So I'm just forewarning that two things really. That the next quarter's report, whilst we will try and maintain all the services, our focuses are on potentially different measures that are not reported in the performance reporting mechanism, and I think that's in quarter three's report. I think we have to make sure we reflect that. But what it doesn't do either, Leader, is reflect the huge amount of commitment and hard work that our teams are in the midst of at this current time. And I think it would be remiss of me not to mention this in council. They're absolutely flat out. Many are exhausted. And I will relay again the messages that I gave to the scrutiny performance panel and ask for everyone in Swansea, the people of Swansea, to do all they can to help adult social care in the coming days, weeks and months to avoid this pandemic. Follow the rules, think about what you're doing, because if you don't, the potential outcomes is catastrophic for our health and social care services locally. So I just want to make sure that that is relayed, but we absolutely find a way of measuring the commitment, hard work and focus that our leadership teams and our social care teams on the front line are putting in today, tomorrow, and will continue to over the next coming weeks and months.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Lloyd. Absolutely concur with that, and I think the efforts all our staff are taking are absolutely astounding at the moment, given the pressures they are facing. And just to say, I think the point you made, 80% of the indicators currently contained within this report have comments about COVID impacts associated with them. So that demonstrates the breadth of the impacts we're seeing at the moment. I'll go to Councillor Francis Davis next, then Councillor Lewis, then Councillor King. So, Councillor Francis Davis.
Yeah, looking at the report, and I thank the report. I think one thing I'd like to praise is our staff. I think they've really risen to the job, working together. Over the years, people say we one council and that we will work together, but they've really proven it now. I think under COVID-19, the way people from highways, environmental health, trading standards, finance, culture, everybody has worked together to deliver the services for the people of Swansea whilst keeping people safe. The ingenuity of how services are being delivered. I look at our museums and our art gallery for people to access services digitally. I think one thing we will come out of this as a smarter city working in different ways. So I think it would be remiss of me if I wasn't to thank our staff.
Thank you, Councillor Francis Davies. I'm sure we'd all agree with that. Councillor Lewis?
Yeah, I would absolutely echo that. Our staff have been the heroes throughout this pandemic, against a very, very difficult backdrop with some very difficult restrictions, particularly in the beginning of the pandemic, in terms of Welsh Housing Quality Standards, delivering essential maintenance and repairs for our council tenants. Nevertheless, we have still opened our site recently, our second council home site, and we've handed over the keys to tenants during what is a really difficult time. And we haven't just handed over properties, we've handed over high quality, highly efficient, energy efficient homes. So they're really delivering in terms during a really difficult period. And I'd also like to pay tribute to our digital services and our digital teams, because without them, it wouldn't have been possible for people to work from home. And obviously, the majority of our staff who can work from home have played a significant part in keeping the public safe. And I hope that everybody hears that message that Councillor Lloyd articulated, that, you know, it's within our gift, within our power to make sure that the people of Swansea are safe. And I hope that they continue to do that throughout this very difficult winter period. But thank you to the teams. They're doing a superb job.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lewis. Very well said. Move to Councillor King next.
Thank you, Leader. As the report shows, the numbers of looked after children in the authority continue to be an area of challenge for us. But of course, that's a picture that's shown across Wales. It's not unique to us in Swansea, and the pandemic has really put a lot of pressure on that, particularly in terms of how the way the courts have been working, and also the ability to undertake work as well. And cabinet members across Wales have been meeting throughout the pandemic to discuss this and look at ways of working with Welsh Government around this. But I think, again, reflecting what colleagues have said, what it really shows is the way our staff have adapted to this challenge, and particularly our social work staff and others in child and family services, how they've come up with new, innovative, different ways to reach families and work with our children and young people. And I think that's a real credit to how they've done that and adapted to the situation to make sure that we're still able to provide the right care at the right time for all our young people in Swansea. And I think that's really important to reflect on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor King. Again, very important points made there. And, you know, I'll come back in at the end because there are a few further things I want to add. But again, thank you for the work that your officers are doing in children's services. Again, a very important job of keeping children safe during the pandemic. I can see Councillor Thomas and Councillor Lewis have their hands up. So I'll go Councillor Thomas first. Sorry, Councillor Thomas and Councillor Gibbard. Sorry, I've got their hands up. So I'll go to Councillor Thomas first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come in. I mean, my colleagues have said everything about, you know, the staff, and it's just to echo, particularly, I wanted to speak in support of the staff that come under my portfolio, as well as the whole council staff here. I mean, and a comment I wanted to make is we haven't achieved these figures on the report because of COVID. We've achieved them despite COVID. I am astounded by the effort of our staff, and you know, for the benefit of any of the public that are listening into this, that hasn't come without a hell of a lot of sacrifice from staff, and it hasn't just happened. Extra resources have had to be allocated, lots of adjustments to the normal routines that our staff normally follow. So they have made huge changes to their normal everyday work. And apart from the extra work, the change in work, you know, we're all experiencing ourselves through having to work from home, etc. But our staff, their daily routines have changed dramatically, and they've just got on with it. And I mean, particularly at this time of year, I think it's very relevant, and you know, that Christmas is coming, and many of our staff will be working right through this Christmas period as well, and we shouldn't forget them as well. And it's just, I can't heap enough praise on all of the staff of the authority, and I just want to make that point, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Gibbard.
Thank you. I don't want to repeat too much of what everyone else has said because they're absolutely right. I just wanted to, as well as thanking our own staff, particularly to thank the voluntary and third sector organisations that we've been working with throughout the pandemic, and it really has been this Team Swansea approach to delivering for our citizens, and obviously individuals as well who've come forward to a massive volunteering effort. So I think it's something that we should all really be proud of.
Thank you, Councillor Gibbard. Yes, I mean, just to recap, I mean, 52% of our measures have seen improvement or maintained the level of service, which, as you've all alluded to, is directly as a result of the huge efforts our staff have made across the council. But I just wanted to add to that. I mean, again, it's important that you as cabinet members continue to lead your directorates in the way that you have been doing, dealing day to day with the challenges of COVID. And I want to thank all of you, first of all, for the efforts that you continue to do as a cabinet in responding to this. Likewise, Phil Roberts, the Chief Executive, and the senior management team for the continued efforts they make to support us and to ensure that we stay ahead where we can of the challenges the virus provides and help us to manage the operations that require us to, that we deliver on a daily basis to the people of Swansea. And then finally, as we've all said, the heroic nature of our staff in terms of what they do day to day. And again, you know, people will need to understand that, you know, for many of our staff, there won't be a Christmas break this year. Many of them will be working right throughout Christmas, keeping people safe, keeping services running, and making sure that people get supported over the Christmas period, and they should be hugely thanked for all of their efforts. So I've got nothing further to add other than to move the recommendations on page 1 of the report, which is that we accept, that the performance results are noted and reviewed, etc., etc. So I'm happy to move them. Could I look for a seconder, please?
Happy to second.
Thank you very much. And again, I'll go to Mr. Evans for the vote.
Thank you. The vote should appear on your screen. Apologies for those it doesn't. Let me know if it doesn't appear for you. I presume nothing for Mark and nothing for Rob, yeah, still?
That's correct. Okay,
so how do you two, can you two cast your vote? I can see Mark's raised for a 4 and a 4 for you as well, Leader?
Yeah, I raised my hand in support.
Okay, so I'm close. Give me a second there. Just waiting for you all to get your votes in. I will now, I'm going to close the vote now then. And let's have a look what we've got. There you are, that's unanimous again, all 9-4. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Evans. So that is carried. We'll move then to the next item on our agenda, and that is the Revenue and Capital Budget Monitoring Report, second quarter 2021. I'll go to Mr. Smith for this item, please. Mr. Smith first.
Thank you, Chair. The report overall before you is similar in conclusions and recommendations to that of the first quarter, albeit with some very significant further variations, which I think is indicative of the sheer scale of impact that COVID is having upon us. Picking out the main points of the report, I'll draw your attention to section 2.3, which indicates that service overspending is lower than as reported at the first quarter and as predicted. This is because of the tranches of Welsh Government reimbursement which were reallocated after the first quarter and your decision on receiving the first quarter report. I'd also like to point out that indeed without COVID, services would be slightly underspent as a whole already forecast for the year. Section 2.7 summarises where we are with those Welsh Government reimbursement claims, excluding the business grants where we act as agent for Welsh Government. I'll come back to those business grants in due course. And does indicate the sheer sums we've already allocated as a result of your decision on receiving the first quarter and the sheer size of sums we are likely to be allocating as a result of one of the recommendations before you today around the second quarter. Section 2.9 reminds you that I still have some central pots of money to help reduce the overall anticipated overspending. Section 3.2 draws your attention to my expectation that the whole of contingency will have to be spent in year. That is both the 3 million in the base budget, but also the £6 million brought forward as a result of the outturn last year. Section 4.1 brings the report together as a whole and still indicates that it is prudent to assume that up to £10 million will need to be drawn from earmarked reserves to cover the rest of the year. Section 5 summarises the capital programme, which remains a record for Swansea. There's still some way to go on spending through the rest of the year, but as you're well aware, what often happens is there is some limited slippage, and that does help me on the capital financing, which I'm able to recognise in the third quarter and outturn. And Section 6 indicates that the HRA remains tidy and looking after itself, but we continue to closely monitor in particular our concerns around any build-up of rent arrears. Appendix A brings that all together in one page, summarises that services remain anticipated to be £25 million overspent, but that is more than accounted for simply by COVID as a whole, summarises where I'm offsetting some central pots of money, shows the amount of business grant support made, which was £51 million, but of course when you receive the third quarter report from me, you will have had the fire break grants and the next tranche of grants going through, so I'd be confident there'll be another £25 million worth of business grants being recorded as reported at the third quarter. The rest of that appendix shows the draw from reserves being the £10 million proposed up to from the capital equalisation reserve, and the draw from contingency on the balance sheet, the £6 million figure. The bottom of the page summarises the £35 million worth of relief we gave at source to businesses in Swansea very early in the year. And the only other matter I'll draw your attention to in that appendix is that right at the bottom, where there is a significant anticipated shortfall on council tax, I and other treasurers remain in consultation with Welsh Government, and we look forward in January to some announcements and considerations of whether Welsh Government is able to assist councils with shortfalls in council tax collection. Looking forward, I do expect when we get to the third quarter that business grant spend reported will be up substantially, well over £20 million. We will see our claims for reimbursement increase from Welsh Government. We will see spending services go up, but the reported overspend go down because we will be reimbursed by Welsh Government. And it is likely in the third quarter you will see me being able to firm up on some underspending on the capital financing, which will bring down the reported overall cost. And I anticipate a lower than the £10 million reported draw from reserves. And in the third quarter, you will also get my update in terms of where we've got to with Welsh Government in terms of council tax reimbursement. So overall, I conclude it is still necessary to advise you to prepare for up to a £10 million draw from those capital equalisation reserves. But I do hope that the third quarter will report a firmer and better position overall. I'll take you back to the beginning of the report, and that would then hand over to you, Chair, where there are 4 recommendations in front of you: to receive the report, to give effect to the environments, note the overall commitment in terms of potential draw from reserves, and continue to remind officers that they must do everything they can to not spend money, but equally recognising that they need to spend money where they have to, where there is a need to respond to the COVID emergency. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And before I go into the report, just acknowledge the efforts that you and your team have continued to make in recent months, not just in managing what must be an incredibly difficult financial position, which changes on an almost daily basis, but also for the work specifically that you and your team have done to support the hundreds of businesses across Swansea, getting out millions of pounds in grants to support businesses where they've had to close or restrict their trade. I am sure many businesses would have closed in Swansea had you and your team not acted so decisively and so efficiently in getting the money out the door. I'm very proud of what you've done. I'm very proud of the way in which you and your team have responded, and you should be rightly commended for it. In addition to that, of course, as you quite rightly say, we are going to continue to do that as we go into the next period of what looks a very difficult period of lockdown. We will continue to get those grants out the door. I just wish, Mr. Smith, that other areas of government were as efficient and effective in doing that role as you and your team have been. Turning just slightly back to the position there, I think it's important what you have noted, which is that in a normal year, we would now be, even in quarter 2, in an underspend position. And that in itself is a remarkable position for that period in the year. We always either achieve a balanced budget or come in as a short underspend when we look at the final outturn. But to be in quarter 2, where we are largely in previous years been advising of a large overspend, I think is a very healthy position, all things considered, to be in. But as you quite rightly say, there are massive variations in terms of the actual budget lines because of the effects of COVID, but we do expect those costs to be largely covered by Welsh Government in terms of their refund mechanism. In addition to that, as you quite rightly pointed out, progress on our capital programme, which remains the biggest ever, covering not just the city centre, but our investment in new and better schools and the delivery of better homes, is the largest it has ever been, and actually is larger than most of the rest of the Welsh capital programmes across local government put together. That is an astounding position for Swansea City Council to be in, and shows the extent of our ambition, but also our capability to deliver. And I know other cabinet members will want to say a bit more on that shortly, but again, it's a truly remarkable position, again, given what we're facing with COVID. So overall, Mr. Smith, thank you for the report. I think it lays out a very clear picture. Like you, I don't anticipate having to use all of the capital equalisation earmarked reserves that we've identified for the measures because of the reasons and other measures that you've stated in your introduction. But thank you again for the work that you're doing. So I can see a couple of hands up there, and I'll go to Councillor Lewis first, please.
Thank you, Leader. Firstly, I would also like to echo your comments about Mr. Smith and his team. I think they're doing a tremendous job during extremely challenging times, and there are things which are thrown at you at the very last minute, and your team pulls out all the stops to deliver it in order to provide that much needed support. So well done to you all. Mr. Smith alluded to us keeping a very close eye on rental collection for our income, and we will continue to do that throughout this pandemic. But I just wanted to highlight, Leader, as you touched upon, the table at item 5, which shows the housing revenue account capital expenditure to date. And even through very difficult, challenging times, we've still invested in the first 2 quarters over £13 million in our council homes. So it is an underspend, but we are making inroads to try and catch up and to spend the 54 million which was allocated. There may be a bit of slippage, but I guess that comes as no surprise to cabinet members during this difficult time. But a tribute to the teams who are, again, now that they're able to return to full construction and to enable support for people in their homes with what WHQS, new kitchens, new bathrooms, enveloping and roofing works. They're pulling out all the stops and they are making inroads into trying to catch up. But it's not to be sniffed at. You know, it's £13 million that we've already invested, and we will continue to do so as an administration.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. And as you say, yes, there is always some slippage in the capital programme, but we've never had such a big capital programme. I think that's the point you rightly make. I'll go to Councillor Francis Davies next.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to join you in thanking Ben and his team. They have been superb. But I think the corporate management team are only superb because of the leadership that you show as well. And there really is a difference in this council to any council that I've known previously, is the ambition shown by yourself, and the corporate management team have responded to that ambition. Coming out of COVID-19, there is hope for Swansea. Probably retail has, been devastated throughout the country, throughout the world. COVID-19 has not just hit Swansea or Wales or the United Kingdom, but every part of the world. But I think the hope for Swansea is that when people are coming out of their homes, driving around Swansea, they can see the building that's going on. That building has created jobs in the construction industry and has created hope for Swansea. So I think that your leadership with the corporate management team all pulling together has really made a difference. So I think the people of Swansea are, whilst not going to be marvellous coming out of COVID-19, they've got far more hope than many other cities in Europe.
Thank you, Councillor Francis Davies. Very much appreciated. And again, thank you for the work you continue to do in terms of delivery of our regeneration programme across the city. I don't see any other hands up, so I'll go back to page 63, I think it is, and the 4 recommendations there that we are being asked to accept. So if I can go to Mr. Evans, I'm happy to move those recommendations. Can I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second.
Thank you very much. And I go to Mr. Evans for the vote.
Okay, the vote is on the screen. Obviously, for the two of you, can't see if you two could indicate. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Rob. Okay, I shall close the vote now. Just give me a moment when it thinks. And again, that's unanimous vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. We've now moved to the next item, which is the delivery update on the Welsh medium provision at Ysgol Gavin Tanalan and Tirdaenw, and I'll go to Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Leader. My camera has gone absent without leave, so I'll just continue on sound if that's okay with yourselves. Happy to bring this report to Cabinet as part of the Council's commitment to increase places for Welsh medium education. In March 2019, Cabinet approved the building of new, larger Welsh medium primary schools for both Tanalan and Tirdaenw. This would create additional places in both schools. Cabinet's decision followed statutory consultation and the publication of statutory notices. The implementation date in the notices was the 1st of January 2021. All of you who have been up to the sites will have seen building work is now progressing very rapidly. However, there have been some delays since I reported to Cabinet in March 2019. The delays have been, for Tanalan, the contributory factors have been the requirement to redesign and in turn resubmit planning applications to account for the increase in size of the school even further. Cabinet will remember the funding for these two schools is made up of two elements, part of the traditional envelope for Band B, but also an additional capital grant to increase Welsh medium places. There was the stopping up order to process for the highway adjacent to the school, and that couldn't be actioned until planning approval was obtained. And indeed, once work was started, the timescale for construction moved to 76 weeks as opposed to the original 52 weeks due to site constraints. And there was a lot more sub-ground level work that had to be undertaken. For Tirdaenw, it was again a case of resubmit the design to build an even larger school because of the approval of the Welsh medium grant application. And as the design was progressing, we came up across the change in sustainable drainage legislation in January 2019, which meant again going back to the drawing board with health and safety officers and the drainage officer and planning, and final SAB, the drainage scheme approval, was delayed for 4 months in order to address the additional technical design requirements requested by the drainage officer. It is going to be very difficult to move schools in a safe way into either school in January 2021. That being the case, I draw your attention to paragraph 2.1 of the report and the need to amend the implementation date in the statutory notices. We have held consultation meetings with both governing bodies, and both schools are agreed that the new proposed date of the 22nd of February 2022 is acceptable. Both schools are confident that they can manage the increase in pupils arising from the catchment area changes approved in the original statutory notices. The report considers the financial, legal and equality and engagement implications of changing the date. I am confident both buildings will be available before February half-term 2022, but given the ongoing COVID restrictions, it is wise to plan for further unforeseen delays. So there are two recommendations for Cabinet to consider on page 82. One is to note the revised timetable and the second to approve the revised implementation date. Happy to take any questions, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rayner. That's very clear and very much support what you have said in terms of the rationale for the recommendations today. I don't see any hands up, but I will go to Cabinet if anybody wishes to comment. If not, then Councillor Rayner.
Yeah, if I could just very briefly, obviously Councillor Rayner has worked tremendously hard with the delivery group team for this, but through an ever-changing landscape with lots of difficulties thrown at the team, they've done an exceptional job, and I'm very happy to second the report, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lewis. That's appreciated. So the recommendations there have been moved and seconded. So I'll go to Mr. Evans for the vote.
Okay, the vote should appear on your screen. There it is. It should be there now. If you could cast your votes for, against, or abstain, and I can thank you for the two. I can see yours as well. I'll give you a couple of seconds before I close the vote. Okay, I'm going quite quickly, so I apologize for that. I will close the vote now. And that's unanimous again, Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Evans. At this point, I will need to temporarily leave Cabinet for another engagement. If I can hand over to Councillor Hopkins, please, and I will rejoin the meeting as soon as I'm able. Thank you, Councillor Hopkins.
Thanks, Leader. If we go on to item 10 on the agenda, which is, again, an education report, appointment of local governor appointments. Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. You have the report. Nothing to add. The recommendations are there.
Evans, going to take the vote.
Okay, the vote should be on your vote is on the screen. If you could cast your votes, please. Again, I'm going a little bit quicker. You're getting used to it, so I'm going to close the vote now. And sorry, but this computer's on the go slow. Again, that's 100%, so that's all for. The vote's carried.
Okay, thanks, Hugh. Thanks, Mr. Rayner. If I then go on to agenda item 11, which is a variation of legal agreement to schools improvements for regional work in Avero.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. I'm very pleased to be bringing this report to Cabinet. Working with ERO over the past few years has been extremely difficult. I have to mention the role of our Chief Executive, Phil Roberts, who is also the Chief Executive of ERO, and the leader in trying to find a credible arrangement for inter-county working to deliver improved education in our schools. ERO was established in April 2014. Seems a very long time ago, and it was a very different landscape for education. ERO was one of 4 Welsh Government consortia created out of 6 very different counties and covering an extensive area of Wales, namely Neathport Talbot, ourselves, Carmarthenshire, Ceredigion and all of Powys, a huge area of Wales. In the year, this present year, 2020 to 21, the ERO region had a budget of just over £35 million, 21 million plus 21 million, which went straight out to schools as a PDG grant. But it has been extremely difficult, given the variations across the authority, to move in an equitable manner and to ensure the improvement of all schools across the regions. In March of this year, Swansea Cabinet decided to give notice of our intention to withdraw from the current ERO arrangements on the 21st of March 2021. Neathport Talbot Council had left in March 2020, and Carmarthenshire and Ceredigion councils have also given notice to withdraw with effect by March 2021. This would leave a rump of 2 remaining councils. At its November meeting this year, the ERU Joint Committee considered 2 reports which required legal changes to the present legal arrangements. The first report looked at a separate legal agreement between the remaining members of ERU, the 5 remaining members, to provide Neathport Talbot schools with access to agreed services to support Neathport Talbot schools for 1 year ending in March 2021. These proposed changes were agreed by the Joint Committee, which consists of the chief executives and leaders of all the member authorities or their nominated delegates, and are subject to approval by each member authority, which is why this paper is before you today. Can I draw your attention to paragraphs 2.3 of the report and of the important appendix attached, especially paragraphs 1 to 1.1.5, which are on pages 98 to 99 of our papers, which relate to the agreement with Neathport Talbot. The Joint Committee also considered a second report concerning the possible ways of dissolving ERU, withdrawal and liabilities and indemnities for all of the original 6 member authorities. A further draft variation proposal of an amendment to the original legal document to reduce the withdrawal notice period from 12 months to 3 months was to enable Pembrokeshire and Powys to submit notice to withdraw and not leave them in the position of being the only remaining members of ERU. The second report was also approved by the Joint Committee at the same meeting on the 13th of November 2020, and this is clearly set out in our page 99, paragraph 1.1.6 of the appendix. If all of the remaining authorities serve notice to withdraw, it will enable ERU to be dissolved and authorities to then formulate mutually beneficial organisations better placed to support school improvements going into the 2020s. There are 3 recommendations on page 92 which relate to varying the legal agreement. But before I offer to take questions, I would ask the Chief Legal Officer to comment and take us through the 3 recommendations, it being a legal matter and there are liabilities related to the breaking up of ERU. So if I could ask Tracy Meredith to come in here, please, I'd be very grateful if she could take us through the recommendations and explain them in more detail.
Tracy isn't here, sorry, Councillor, but I'm here in her place.
Thank you, Debbie.
We're still in discussions with the other authorities. Actually, what you have before you is an initial draft variation. It's likely to be amended further to discussions that are ongoing, and that's why there's provision in the agreement for delegation to be made to the Chief Legal Officer, together with the Interim Director of Education, to make any further changes. So what you see before you at the moment is the basic agreement, which provides for services to be delivered to Neathport Talbot on a no-cost basis to members of ERU, and the ability for the 2 remaining councils to give notice, should they wish to do so, by the end of this month, and then for the ERU to be arrangements to be wound up. What we have outstanding at the moment is still some discussions around the liabilities of the parties, those that have already left, i.e. Neath Talbot, and those who are leaving this year, and the ones who have not yet left or given notice to leave. And it's those remaining discussions around the extent of the liabilities that is still ongoing. So that will need to be captured in some further amendments to the draft that you have before you. But the basic provisions have already been captured, as you've already outlined, Councillor Rayner. They're already set out, but will be tweaked further.
So many thanks to Debbie. This is an incredibly complicated situation. The legal document makes no reference to any folding, closure, dissolution, and so we are literally playing it as we go along, and again with 6 very different local authorities. So happy to move the recommendations, Councillor Hopkins. As Debbie has said, it is as it is, and the 3rd recommendation delegates authority to officers to come to the final agreement and bring that report back to us.
Thanks, Councillor Rayner. Could I just add my thanks to you for your leadership and stewardess throughout this this document. In fairness, I think you've been very, very vocal on the situation within Aero, and I really do thank you for your presence there. So it's been moved. I formally second. And anybody else like to come and comment? No? Okay, then I put it to the vote. Thanks, Mr. Evans.
So if you could cast your votes, please. For, against and abstain. And if Councillor, there you are. I will close the vote now. Hopefully not too quickly for all of you.
Okay.
Just waiting. Right, again, that's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much.
So then 12, which is a report for myself, which is the continuation of Swansea City Centre Business Improvement District. This has been in existence.
Before you start, I declared an interest, personal and prejudicial. I shall leave this now.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Davis. Okay, I then start off by presenting the 4 recommendations before us today. It's probably been never a better time in partnership with our city centre and business improvement districts going forward. We're looking at days for that continuation going forward. With the condition of retail, particularly in our city centre at the moment, I think this is certainly something we need to continue. It's self-explanatory today, and I think if we look at something we've achieved with the city centre, and hopefully that will continue. I know we're going through a very difficult time at the present time with COVID and others. I hope with all our investment in the city centre and our strategic involvement in purchasing buildings that will come with us at a later stage, we can increase footfall and actually hopefully get the city centre back to where it was. And also we've got a very ambitious programme of regeneration of the city centre, and I think BID are a very important player in taking us forward in that. I've got one hand up, which is Councillor Jen Rayner.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to second this report. I think it's excellent. I think BID has proved its value. It is an excellent sounding board for all changes within the city centre and the increasingly wide area. And I would really like to see it continue and for us to give it as much support as possible.
Thank you for that, Councillor Rayner. It's been moved. It's been seconded. I hand over to Evans to take the vote. Oh, sorry, Councillor Lloyd, did you want to come in?
Very, very briefly, I just echo Councillor Rayner's reports. I think I'm right in saying that Swansea was one of the first, if not the first, council in Wales to have a business improvement district, and I think it's a forum and a work in practice that many other cities have followed. I think it's been a huge success. I think it provides focus. I think it provides leadership, and it's a mechanism for businesses, for shops to come together and channel through one voice, really, and we can interact instead of dealing with individual businesses. So I think it's more than got its worth. I think it's stood Swansea in good stead. You said, Deputy Leader, about the current situation, but as Councillor Francis Davis said earlier, in adversity, we've got hope. You know, there's lots of plans, and BID are a big part of that. And hopefully 2021, working together with organisations like BID, will put Swansea at the forefront of the recovery in South Wales.
Thanks, Councillor Lloyd. Totally agree. Okay, we've got the voting forms in front of us. Could we all cast our votes, please?
Okay. I'm just going to close the vote.
Mr. Evans, I did have it, but it's gone now. It's disappeared before I voted.
It should be still there. Hang on. Yeah, all right, I'll close it. Do you know cast your vote by hand, Councillor Lloyd? There you are.
And Mark Thomas.
Yeah, I've got those. And that vote is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Evans. We then go on to item 13, which is an FPR7 report, report of the Cabinet Member for Environment Enhancement and Infrastructure Management. Councillor Mark Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, we're looking for approval to allocate a further £2 million of capital funding to our highways programme for this year. As you're aware, we put in record amounts this year of 6.75 million. And we want to add a further 2 million. I think there is clear evidence as people travel on our roads of the benefits of the extra funding we've already put in. And this will give us further, I think it's somewhere around about 22 further schemes. It will help us complete this financial year. It's not an exact science on this. As I said, the report is asking for authority delegated to the head of service and myself so that we can allocate the funding as and when required, because a lot depends on circumstance on the time. We are greatly affected with our schemes by weather and local conditions, you know, gaining access to our streets and things like that. But it is our intention to add this 2 million to our existing budget, and that's going to see even further huge improvements to our network. It doesn't cover the backlog. The backlog on our infrastructure is way beyond that, but it does help, and I think there is clear evidence already of where we've been able to bring the schemes forward, and I think there's evidence in every ward across Swansea where that improvement work has been carried out. This will allow us to continue with the programme of work we've already got. We've identified the schemes, we know where they are and what's required, and so this will be, the schemes are already sitting there waiting to be done, and this allocation will just help bring schemes forward on our 5-year programme. So I'm very grateful for the extra funding, and I think this is, you know, not just we are going to see the benefit of it, all road users in Swansea are going to see huge benefits to their journeys as they travel across the city. I'd like to move the report, Chair. Happy to take any questions on it.
Thank you, Councillor Mark Thomas. Can I just check before I open up debate that and ask for whether we have invited Councillor Robert Francis Davis back into the room?
Hang on, I had forgotten, I'll be honest with you.
I missed his presence.
I'm just calling you now. Apologies, I totally forgot myself.
I just realised the next report is in his name, so.
I believe he's in the meeting now. I'm just double checking that. Yeah, he's in the meeting. You are here, Councillor Francis Davis? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Just so Councillor Robert Francis Davis's years, really, we have started item 13 in your absence, which is £2 million investment in highways. We have had it moved. I'm just about to second it. Could I ask Councillor any comments? Don't see any hands. Okay, could I now ask Mr. Evans to put it to the vote, please?
Yes, so the vote should be on your screen now. If you could cast your votes, please, and thank you, Councillor Thomas. I can see your vote, and I will close the. I'm closing the poll now, and that's unanimous again. Thank you, councillors.
Thanks, Mr. Calling Councillor Robert Francis Davies for his report on Wine Street and the public. Councillor Robert Francis Davies.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkin. It's the Wine Street Public Realm Enhancement. It's an FPR 7 report. You will see on paragraph 1 with the introduction to 1.8, you'll see project design and update. You will notice that we did approve the that we would go for the gold standard earlier on in the year. We've had an agreement of £2.278 million on this project. There's extra work that has been carried out onto the bollards on the top and the bottom for security, also extra lighting and other tree maintenance work that had to be carried out at the time. The project will be finished in 2021. You see the recommendation there to approve a total maximum budget figure of 2.88 million for the construction fees and contingency, and to include this figure in the capital programme. I so move.
Okay, Councillor Robert Francis Davies. I'd like to second that. And before I do, I'd like to. We've talked about this long enough. It's about time we did deliver it. Seems a long time coming, but I think no matter how long it takes, it's getting it right is the thing. And I know there's been multi sort of discipline in the city, within the county. And I got to thank officers for bringing this to us in a very, what I would say, will help us continue our recovery plan after COVID to actually deliver a better city centre. So thanks for their efforts there. I've got 2 people in the. So if I could ask Councillor Jen Rayner, please.
Thank you. I really do welcome this report and the detail within it. I think it gives us an opportunity to develop Wine Street from being a centre for the nighttime economy to the early evening economy and for the daytime economy. And I welcome anything that gets more mixture of people there, older people, children, using the area. There's some very good restaurants and bars and cafes, and it should not be seen just as somewhere to go and get drunk. So I think this is a really good opportunity to improve the whole area, and especially to make Wine Street more accessible, more pleasant for a wider range of people, for all our residents. So happy to support this proposal.
Thanks, Councillor Rayner. Councillor Mark Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a brief comment. I think it's I've been involved in it at a lesser level than Councillor Francis Davies, but it's another example, as Councillor touched on, of cross-departmental working and cooperation. Yeah, it just shows what we can when we get together and develop a scheme. The amount of consultation that's been undertaken has been immense. We've involved any and every person who had a contribution to make, and we have tried to design a scheme. This has taken a long time to come together, and it is the umpteenth iteration of design. And I think on this occasion, we've got everything right, including the green infrastructure, the lighting, the levels, the care and consideration given to all future users of Wine Street. And I think this is going to really transform it, and it is going to be really welcomed and appreciated by everybody who wants to visit or use Wine Street in the future.
Thanks, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Edith King.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Really happy to support this report and reflect the comments of colleagues. I think it's another sign of the excellent work that's been undertaken in the city centre to improve and regenerate look. And the comment I wanted to make was, already with the new P lighting that's been installed, it looks absolutely fantastic and has really improved the look and feel of the street in the night. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this develop. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I certainly would agree with that. It's made a massive difference, and I know the leader was very keen to ensure that their P lights were included, because he believes that lighting is a very important part of the city centre going forward. And yes, I think Councillor Rayner's comments totally right. This will make this an area for the daytime economy, not just a nighttime economy.
Yeah, and can I thank as well Councillor Hopkins?
Okay, yeah, carry.
Yeah, I welcome all the comments from everybody, and but this was started as you rightly say some 4.5 years ago, talking to the businesses in Wine Street, and they wanted to create that cafe quarter theme going through there. And Councillor Rayner is quite right that we want to encourage all family use as well in this area in the daytime. We have a very strong nighttime economy, but it needs to be right through the day, right through the afternoon, going into the into the evening to make sure that it's really successful. And Councillor King is quite right about the lighting. It's given a nice mood to it. And watch this space, because there's great plans for Castle Square as well, and I'm sure that this work going into Castle Square will be transformational for the city centre and the walkway down to the new arena. Lots of new lighting, and I think that's to be welcomed. A city on the move, and we can't do all parts of the city and then forget what Wine Street was contributing, and this is making sure that no area of our city is going to be left behind. And when you look at the work going on further up in High Street with the Palace Theatre, our programme of regeneration on the city centre is right across the city centre, not just part of it. This is just another important part of that city centre framework that we're working towards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Francis Davis. Much appreciated. And comments. It's been moved and seconded. Can I ask Councillor Evans, please, to put us to the vote?
Well, thank you for the promotion.
Not yet, not yet.
I've just placed the vote on your screens. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now. And again, that's unanimous. Thank you all for voting.
Evans, so with the promotion or demotion, not sure there, but there we are. If we then go on to agenda item 15, to report the Cabinet member invite enhancement infrastructure, Councillor Mark Thomas.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, great pleasure in bringing this report and asking for Cabinet support on this particular item. We put in 4 bids to Welsh Government as part of the circular economy. What's exciting about these is we currently classed as a throwaway society as a general statement, and this is more about reuse and repair. There are 4 separate bids that we've applied for, but all with basically the same theme, is that instead of throwing stuff away and putting it into landfill, that there is much of that can be reused and repaired. So if I go through them briefly, there are appendix attached for each of the items, which will give you far more detail. But the first one is the repair cafe and library of things, and that's going to be situated up in our shop in Llansamlet, and that'll be basically where people can bring in equipment, materials that need repair, and they can be repaired there in front of them. It's not only this will be with the use of other organisations, third-party and volunteer groups, and this will basically be bringing in something like a kettle or something that can be repaired, and whilst it's being repaired, the person who brings it in can watch and observe and maybe learn, especially if it's something like a fuse needs replacing or something like that. Relatively simple things that can be repaired on the spot, and when the person who said brings it in, maybe they can pick up some of that expertise in being able to do minor repairs themselves. The second item that's a bid is going in for is the mobile repair cafe. So that's a similar sort of thing, but obviously, as the title explains, it's mobile. It's the purchase of a vehicle where we can take the repair cafe out and about to communities. Those can be arranged with local community groups and organisations and councillors. Look at, coming to your areas and in sort of community centres and places like that. The same sort of principle will apply. People can bring along their goods, their faulty goods, to see if they can be repaired and reused. And we're also looking to operate effectively, that we name in something like a swap shop thing. So you can bring an item you no longer want and perhaps leave it there, and maybe at the same time pick up something that's been left there that might be of interest to you. All of this, again, is key to avoiding this principle of, if once you don't want it, you throw it away. So there's many things that we throw away as society today that certainly have a longer life left in them, and certainly would be great and ideal for repair or reuse. The third project we look at to support, this is, in partnership with Swansea Environment Centre. And again, looking at we often talk about the growth in our cycle network, and this fits in ideally as we encourage more and more people to use bikes and bicycles. Then this is an opportunity to have facilities to repair those bikes, So another great project, and it fits exactly with our ambitions for expanding cycling across our network. And again, and the fourth one is, sorry, bear with me, improvements to repair and reuse through partnerships. Now, this is a very exciting element of this. We've already been involved with 12 other organisations, and I think there's more to come. And this is a bigger scale item because, this is talking about big white goods, three-piece suites and things like that, about repairing and reusing them and reselling them. And we are working in partnership on this with some of the charity organisations, existing charity organisations, who want the furniture and want the ability to resell this stuff, but they simply don't have storage space. So we would be able to take in goods that people are throwing away, partly through our bulky waste collections. Some of the bulky waste collections that we collect now, items are in good condition. We can bring them in, we can store them, pending when one of the charity organisations is able to take them off our hands and sell them at their locations. So again, it's not only great because it avoids waste, it's reuse and repair, but also tying up with all these other organisations who are currently doing that as we speak. So I like it because there are so many things that it has the right approach to and answers to. As I said, it's not simply repair and reuse, it's involvement with third-party organisations. And again, the other attraction to this is capital and revenue investment for us, but with no ongoing revenue implications for us, because we think through all these schemes will be self-funding anyway. So any revenue implications won't fall on the council, and they will pay for themselves. And I think it's an area that we are going to see grow over the years. Hopefully it will. I mean, if it does what it says in the tin, that will be the case. This will expand across the city and more people will be using this sort of method rather than disposing of goods. I'm happy to move the recommendation, Chair, and happy to take any questions on it.
Thanks, Councillor Thomas. Could I firstly welcome Councillor Stewart back into the meeting as well? I think Andrea Lewis has indicated she certainly would like to I believe, to second this. But what I would say to you, I think it's yet a credit to the way of prevention, where we're trying to stop landfill, full stop, and increase our recycling targets. So I think you've driven that agenda very, very ambitiously and very successfully so far. So well done, Councillor Thomas. Could I then ask Councillor Lewis to come in?
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. I warmly welcome this report. I think Councillor Thomas is absolutely right that we will be seeing a lot more increased use of facilities like these. We have become a very throwaway, disposable society. There's no doubt about it, driven by consumerism and with very low quality, poor quality items being produced, which are thrown away and then just replaced. And I think it would be good to see those quality items repaired and reused, and the skills that go along with that are really important as well. And just wanted to make the obvious connection to climate change. And obviously it's much better not to throw things away, but to reuse them rather than them go to landfill. So I am very happy to second this report. And I'm very grateful to Councillor Thomas for bringing it forward to Cabinet today. And I'd really love to look forward to seeing the expansion of all the sites and centres which are referred to in the report.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Lewis. If I then go on to Councillor Louise Gibbard.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just wanted to say how positive and exciting these projects look. I think they tick so many boxes in terms of environmental benefits, supporting our communities, and of course very much in line with our commitments under the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. And so really hope this is successful.
Okay, it's been moved, it's been second. Could I ask Mr. Evans to put us to the vote?
Thank you. The vote is now on your screen. If you could all cast your votes. I will now close the poll.
Excuse me, Mr. Evans, before you do, can I just record an abstention on this one as I wasn't present for the whole item?
Yeah, no problem at all.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Stewart.
Okay, the vote's just coming closed. So that's all four, with the exception of the one abstention by the leader.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Evans. Councillor Mark Thomas, so yes, just be voting, sorry. If you then, I could then hand over to the leader for item 16.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins, for chairing. Much appreciated. Item 16 then is the exclusion of the public. You have the rationale laid out there by the legal officer. I'm happy to move that. Could I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second.
Mr. Evans, could you ask you to take the vote again for those in agreement?
The vote's on the screen for everybody. I'll just close it down now. And that's unanimous again. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Therefore, I'll pause for 2 seconds while Mr. Evans pauses the recording.